Hey guys, Matt here. We're on week 6 of the YouTube dating guide that we're doing. Last week we focused on the art of conversation, and what I said was we could create an emotional bond with any new stranger that we happen to meet. Well, I gave you half of it. I didn't tell you that in the video, but I realized that I was going on and on and on about conversation, which is really important stuff, but I didn't have enough time to get to really the meat and potatoes of it. So we're going to do that today. We're just going to clean up a few things and then we're going to go on. So what we're going to start with is we're going to start with what I like to call outcome-based approaches. So the reason that you interact with anybody in this world should have an outcome. I mean, if you call your mom or your dad or whatever on Sunday to tell them how you're doing, you should have an outcome of trying to make them feel good or just talking to them or whatever it is. If you talk to your boss, you should have an outcome of what you want to do. And when you talk to anybody, especially like in you're going out to meeting girls or meeting dudes or whatever, you should have an outcome before you open your mouth. You should have a why in your head before you start talking. You shouldn't just talk to fill the gap. You should always have a reason why you're going to say something. So just to get out of that, we're going to talk about two things today. We're going to talk about the pickup artist called Kino, which is basically just body language, and specifically like actually physically touching other human beings. So like body touching, if you will, like in a non-sexual way, but it's just Kino. It sounds even better than body touching. And we're going to talk about how to get your DHV stories out there naturally. So you've already been working on these DHV stories. You've built up some stories. Maybe you've practiced them. Maybe you've told some other people. I mean, I'm sure there's stories you've told before, but you polish them up, make them sound better. But what we're going to do is we're going to find little ways to be able to drive those into conversations without necessarily you like bragging. You know what I mean? All right. So first what we're going to talk about is the DHV stuff. All right. So I'm just going to give you an example from my personal life. So whenever you go out, and we'll get into this a little bit later, but basically, maybe you've heard of the term peacocking. It's a pretty popular term. We're going to do that a little bit. We're going to stand out from the crowd, but not necessarily to the extent that the guys did back in the early 2000s when they were going out wearing like literally like neon shirts and like bright flashing light necklaces and stuff like that. You can if you want. It's up to you. It's pretty powerful. I personally don't do it because I think it makes you kind of come out like a clown. But I've seen it done very well, and I know it's very effective. So if that's your game, then dude, play your game. But if it's not, then let's talk more my style, right? Okay, so this is an example from my own personal life, just so you know what I'm talking about. I got this hat, like an Indiana Jones hat, ooh, that way, when I was in Africa. So I actually wear this hat out to the bar and clubs and stuff often because A, I stand out from the crowd, and B, I feel like it makes me look like Indiana Jones. So that's always a good thing in my eyes. And C, what it does is, I mean, people comment on it. Who else is walking around in a safari hat in, downtown Seoul, South Korea, or, wherever, Miami, Florida? How many guys are rocking safari hats? Probably just me, in my experience. So what it does is, if I'm just sitting at a bar, or if I'm wearing it around, it gives other people a way to talk to me. Because every time that I don't have to approach somebody to talk to them, that's a win. Because the approach game is the hard stuff. That's where you get in the approach anxiety, and you start like clamming up. You're like, what do I say? What do I say? And that's kind of emotionally stressful. I mean, honestly, it really is. It's a tough thing. But whenever you can wear an accessory or wear something that makes other people approach you, and open up to you about a story that you have, it's killer. So you want to load your accessories with your DHV stories. So somebody's like, hey, dude, where'd you get that hat? And I'm like, oh, man, I got it in Africa. And I mean, we're talking about right now, I'm in Amsterdam. And I'm like, what? When were you in Africa? And then you get this whole story, and you get this big conversation flow just off of one accessory. It's very, very powerful stuff. Highly recommend it. It can be, I've got like some necklaces or bracelets, or you can do whatever. You can wear a crazy like floral shirt. I've got a buddy, a real good friend, who he goes out and wears like Hawaiian shirts that he got from all over the world in places that you don't wear Hawaiian shirts. Like a nightclub, he'll wear a Hawaiian shirt and a blazer, and people are like, "Oh, I like your Hawaiian shirt." He's like, "Yeah, I got it in Indonesia." And you're like, "Oh, well, that's random. Let's talk about it." So definitely look at that, your DHV accessories. The other way you can get it out there is basically you can download a free app. I'm not pushing any specific app here. I'm not that kind of dude. But just, like a bucket list, like the list of stuff you want to do before you die. So what you can do is download this app, and you load it up with things you want to do, and the kicker, the secret, is loading it up with things that you've already done. So you have it like X'd off. And that gives you preloaded stories you can tell. And all you have to do is manage to work that app into conversation. I mean, it's as simple as like they start playing with their phones and you're like, oh yeah, dude, I can't quit looking at this app. Check this out. It's my bucket list and I've been trying to think about it. And what do you have on yours? And you can pull yours out and show it to them. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, when did you go scuba diving? Or when did you win a boxing fight? Or whatever. Whatever it is that you have in there. And then you can like load up pre-story. You can have your stories ready to go. And then you guys can start a real conversation flow. All right. So 2 ways to get DHV stories out there. Like I said, number 1 is the accessory. That's my personal favorite, and also the bucket list, which is a really cool thing to do. All you gotta do is work the bucket list in, and you're golden. Okay. What we're gonna talk about now is we're gonna talk about the kino, the body touching. So basically, when you meet somebody new, you always want to initiate physical contact. Normally, that's done with a handshake. Right? It's a popular thing around the world. Everybody shakes hands. So you always want to do that. Whenever you meet somebody, always shake their hand. Because what you do is when you create a physical touch, you create an emotional bond. Actually, one of the fastest ways to the friend zone, if you will, is having a very emotional connection with no physical touching. Because you get all these, you don't get the endorphins going. You don't get like the body chemistry, the body flushing, all this other stuff that ends up happening when you actually physically touch somebody. So when you shake hands, so basically we're going to think about it like this. There's 4 phases, or there's 3 phases that we're going to worry about right now. There's 3 phases of kino. There's professional, so like you can think of that as like anything you would do to your boss. You shake their hand, you can touch the outside of their elbow to about the shoulder. With somebody that you don't know, I mean you can just tap them on the shoulder or nudge them with your elbow on the outside of their arm, or you can, when you shake their hand, you can grab their elbow right here. And then there's friendly, which is things that you would do with your friends. So as you warm up a little bit, you can put your hand on their collar and rest a little bit. You could throw your arm around them and face sideways, and things that you think about, things that you would do with a mutual guy friend. Like as comfortable as you would be touching that person, that would be friendly. And then there's romantic, which is like holding hands, hugging, kissing, stuff like that. So you can still build up a ton of emotional charge and chemistry with just the professional. All you have to do is just touch people more often on the outside of their arm, and when they start touching you back, that's kind of like permission for you to go. So it's kind of like a give and take game. So if I met somebody new, personally, I'd shake their hand, and then I'd give them a little pat on the arm, and then if they touch me back, in any way, later on, pat me on the shoulder or whatever, then I know A, it's okay, everybody's okay with it, and B, if it's a girl, it's probably good to go. It's probably good to start ramping up the escalation a little bit, as they call it. Okay, so we talked about a little bit about kino, talked about your DHV stories, and now I'm going to talk about closing, actually. So whenever you go out and you meet an attractive member of the opposite sex, you always want to close, because otherwise you're just going to leave it in the air. Let's say, sure everybody's been there. You've had, a 30-minute conversation with somebody, and then you just didn't do it for whatever reason. Either you forgot about it, or you're just nervous to ask, or whatever. And so you just left, and then they're in your memory forever, and you're just like, oh man, what could have been? Well, we're going to get rid of that, because we're going to start closing. So to close, all you have to do is say something like, I've had a great time, it was really nice to meet you. Me and my friends got to get out of here. They're all bugging me to go, so let me get you. And you can close with Facebook, or you can close with a phone number, or you can go ahead and close with a date if you want. I want to see you on Friday night. I want to take you wherever. You know what I mean? All right. So all you got to do is that. Hey, I had a great time. I really had a nice conversation with you. I'd like to see you again. I really got to get out of here. I don't want to, but I have to go. Let me get your Facebook. Bam. And then you can initiate a conversation. Some people don't like the Facebook close because it feels a little weak, but that also means it's really, really, really easy. Because people aren't hesitant to give their Facebook out. You give somebody somebody trying to get their phone number, nowadays it's a little more intrusive than it used to be, since we have so many different ways of social media now. But really, if you see a pretty girl at a club and you're about to leave, or you're not about to leave, you just want to get her number real fast or whatever, you walk up to her and you're like, hey, I think you're really pretty. My friend's that guy. I go, what's your Facebook? I'm gonna look you up. And 90% of the time is if you say it with the right confidence and the right attitude, they're probably going to give it to you. Then you just initiate a conversation on there, which we'll get to later. So it's win-win, right? I mean, it's easy peasy, no worries. Another thing you can do is you can actually use the word weird. Sometimes when guys are trying to close, they make it awkward. And to be honest with you, like a Facebook or phone number close between two people who don't know each other is kind of awkward. But you can use that to your advantage because as long as you acknowledge that it's weird, then it becomes like a secret that you two share. Be like, look, this is cool. We've been talking, and I know this is a little bit weird. I don't usually meet girls in bars, but can I get your number? You know, or whatever. So there you go. What we talked about. We talked about the DHV accessories and the DHV, like how to initiate the stories more into conversation. Talked a little bit about Kino and the physical professional touching, which is your assignment this week, by the way. I want you to start trying to professionally touch everybody you meet. You know, you've gone out and you've done the talking to everybody. Now I want you to ramp it up and actually physically touch people. It's going to get you out of your comfort zone. And I'm saying run around and groping everybody. I'm saying to do is run around, introduce yourself, shake your hand, and practice giving them a little slap on the arm, a little tap on the shoulder, or whatever. All right? Till next week, every Wednesday, here comes a new video. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, like me or whatever. Leave a comment, ask a question on Twitter, DHV Coach. Visit my website. I'm here to teach, man. I'm feeling good. I'm liking where this program's going. Week 6, still just getting started, man. This is going to be a good program. All right, take it easy.